What is TypeScript basically? So TypeScript is nothing but a superset for the JavaScript. So everything that you can do with JavaScript that you can also do with the TypeScript. On top of that, you can also have additional functionalities like it's a strictly type checking. Then it will provide you the object-oriented functionalities. It will provide you the much more modularization using which you can write large or complex application very easily and much more on top of JavaScript. It will help a developer to write the code in a much simpler fashion and in a much syntax error free way, we can say. So let's understand how exactly the TypeScript is used and why there is a need to use the TypeScript. So let's understand here with an example. A developer is writing a code in JavaScript and just trying to build a website. And he is doing that, then he's pushing it on the internet, and then the users over the internet using it. Now, here, the JavaScript is known by developer. He is writing the code in JavaScript. All the users over the internet are having JavaScript in their browsers. It could be mobile, it could be tablet, PC, whatever it could be. They're having the JavaScript is being already installed. That's the reason they're able to read the JavaScript based website. Now, the developer here is saying that I'm having a couple of issues with JavaScript. What are those? Like, it is not giving me alerts for the errors as early as possible. Then it's also saying that like it's not much object-oriented way, so I'm not able to write the much complex operations. So these are all the drawbacks from the JavaScript that we will discuss separately in the upcoming videos now. So the developer wants to use the TypeScript here. But the main problem here is that we cannot ask all of your users to change their devices to start supporting the TypeScript. There are billions of users, billions of devices which supports already JavaScript. We cannot randomly directly ask them to change it to the TypeScript so that they can start supporting the TypeScript. So here is what the TypeScript plays a very good role. What is that? Now our developer will not write code in JavaScript in which he was facing some problems. He will write the code in the TypeScript. And now when he is writing the code in TypeScript, when the code is get compiled, it will give you output in the JavaScript itself. And now the JavaScript can also be understood by all the devices over the internet present. And this is the way we are solving the problem from the developer side and not also not affecting our users to change their devices. And here is the TypeScript solving a major problem here for the developers, which will help now to write a bigger code and everything in a much simpler fashion. How JavaScript works. We'll just try to write a simple JavaScript file here for the sake of understanding how we write a code in JavaScript and how the different variables will be created, how we attach with an HTML file, and how it will be helpful for a website for its working. And once we are doing that, we'll also check how the type safety issues will come here, how the syntax checking is missing with the JavaScript, how it is not much readable and maintainable when you're writing a large chunk of code, how the object oriented principles are missing over here in the JavaScript, and how the compilation problem is there with the JavaScript. So let's try to write a sample JavaScript file here. And before I start here, I would like to say in this particular lecture, what is the code we are writing? This is just for your demonstration, like how the JavaScript will function and how the issues we face with the JavaScript. So you shouldn't be writing any code in this particular module. What is the code you need to write? What is the setup you need to do for the ID, Visual Studio Code, for the maybe Node, maybe for the TypeScript, for whatever it could be that is in the next module. So you should just watch right now and understand what are the difficulties are coming up with the JavaScript. So let me just start writing a sample code here. Let me initialize an index.html file and let me just use a quick shortcuts here that we'll discuss later. And here is an HTML5 syntax where I'm able to get all the head and body section. And let me just say over here, oh, hello world. Yeah, fine. And let me just see the execution of it. Yeah, I'm able to see that. I'm simultaneously also opening the console here to see the JavaScript output and all. So let me also write a quick JavaScript file here. So I'll name it as script.js. And here I'll say hi from JavaScript file. Here we go. Fine. Now I need to attach this particular script.js file with my index. So what I need to do for that, I just need to write a quick script tag here. I should mention I want to use script.js here in this particular HTML file. And now let me just refresh it and confirm my JavaScript file is getting executed. So it's a very super simple functionality here, an HTML file with a small JavaScript file here with the name script.js, which is saying hi, and we have attached it with the HTML. Now let's try to have writing some code here which causes some issues to understand us. So let me just say here a variable called marks equals to 10. Okay, sounds good. Let me just console it now and confirm everything is working fine. Yes, everything is working fine. Now, what as a developer, I'm doing a mistake here. Let's say I'm writing a very big code and I'm just doing a quick mistake here like this. Instead of mentioning the marks here in the upcoming line number third of this code, I'm mentioning my name inside a wrong variable. Is it complaining anything to us here? Is it giving any syntax error to us here? No. And now, if I just see the outcome, it will directly say my name here, which should not be our intended functionality. So this is the way at the time of development, due to the lack of syntax issues and everything that JavaScript won't highlight. So here the problem is that it's a variable which is holding an integer value. Why we are giving a string to it? It should not be done, but we are doing it and JavaScript is not identifying that. And why it's not identifying, it's not a problem, we can say, from the JavaScript. It's a behavior of the JavaScript that it's very much lightweight and it won't apply much validations and everything. It just try to be much lightweight so that it can suit on all the devices. It's a functionality from the JavaScript, but as a developer, when the size of the code and everything we are increasing, we are having these issues from our side as a developer. Okay, fine. So this is what the type safety issue. It's an integer and we are assigning a string, but JavaScript is not complaining us. Let's try to discuss the next one. The lack of syntax checking. Sounds good. The lack of syntax checking here. Let's say I'm just saying here, instead of marks, I'll just say here name. I'm just saying name equals to Navin here. So instead of name, I'll just use student name because name is some other inbuilt keyword which causing some other issues. I don't want to put that complexity over here in this example. So I'm just randomly using some new variable and just assigning a name to it and just trying to print that. Let's see the output. Yeah, we are getting, but we haven't declared it yet, but still we are using it, right? It's not good. If you have learned other programming languages or something as a scripting, so we must declare the variables first before start utilizing it. And that of course necessary, right? Because in upcoming code, I may even do by mistakenly something like this. So what's happening here? Whenever you're using a new variable, it is automatically getting created in background. That's what the JavaScript behavior. But it's not good from a programmer perspective. Whenever I'm going to use a variable, I must declare it first, then I should start using it. So if I'm using a variable like this, the compiler, or I should get some syntax error, this variable is not being initialized, or maybe, sorry, it's not being declared, and we are using it directly. So this is what the one more problem, something called syntax checking. This is with respect to only the declaration, but there are other many issues with respect to uh, that, like JavaScript won't provide you the syntax error as early as possible. Let me just give you one more example here in that case. So let me just write a quick function here and just name it. It's a function one. And let's say it won't accept any parameters. And I'm just saying log I from function one. Sounds good. Let me just comment out the above functionalities and let me just say here like call the function one. I should get an output high from function one here. Yes, we are getting. Now, let's say by mistakenly, I'm calling the function two instead of function one. It's not complaining anything. Like we don't even have the function two. JavaScript is not checking that. And if you just hit this particular file and just see, you are getting the error at the production, at the runtime when it's performing an execution. It is saying that function 2 is not defined, something like that. But we should get that error over here. So these type of syntax checking and everything is not available with the JavaScript, which is causing the developers nowadays to handle the complex scenarios, and it's getting much difficult with just writing the code with JavaScript. So here the developer should be much more cautious on all these things, as JavaScript is not highlighting these issues. Let me just discuss the next one. It's not readable and the maintainable for the large application. So of course, with the issues we discussed, when we are going to write a large application here with much more complexity and everything, maybe it could be any algorithm or something. So it's not much feasible and the readable to write the code in the JavaScript. So that's what the today's convention of the developer with the JavaScript now, due to these issues and all. Next, it's messing with the object-oriented principles. Of course, it's a way long, very old scripting language, and it's a very much lightweight and everything for its day-to-day usage, because it's supportable in all the devices. So it can't put much complications in that. Otherwise, it will get overloaded, and it will be difficult to run the JavaScript on all the devices. So it won't having much functionalities with respect to the object oriented principles. It could be inheritance, it could be classes, it could be interfaces. It has with a limited functionality, but it is not having the great functionalities like Java, C++, C Sharp, VB.NET, we can say, to create the much complex application with the JavaScript. Next, it's don't have the direct execution. Like the way I have given you the example here, we are writing a code here, it is not going to compile anyway. You just need to save your code. There is no compilation in between, and you just need to directly run it. It means the direct execution. And if any errors are there, whatever the good, bad, you will only understand when the execution will happen. So here are the few difficulties and issues that we discuss with the JavaScript. And to solve these issues and everything, the JavaScript will keep releasing the new versions and everything that we'll see in the upcoming lecture. For now, we'll stop in this particular video, and I'll request you, you can also experience these issues, but no need to write much complex code here. This is just to understand the issues that JavaScript is facing. See you in the next lecture. Here we'll try to understand the JavaScript different versions. So in the previous lecture, we have seen the issues which are coming up with the JavaScript. So of course, to resolve these issues and everything, and to perform the more performance improvement for the execution perspective, or for the developer simplification, the JavaScript community will keep releasing the new versions. But of course, it won't cover the problems that we discussed. But internally, to have the performance improvement and more things, it will keep releasing the new update to suit the new requirements. So I'm just randomly Googling out the JavaScript version. It's of course a good practice whenever you are doing it. Just try to cross check from the 2 to 3 different sources too, so that you'll have a good understanding, and you'll also learn how to get most out of it from the different sources instead of relying only on few sources. I have seen many students who are continuously relying on a same resource. So later, if they see any new resource, it will be a bit difficult. So here we'll try to understand the JavaScript versions from the two different resources. One is from the W3C, which is the mostly used one, and the second is the gigs for gigs one. So let me just open the JavaScript versions here from the W3C. So it is saying that when it is first started, when it is what is the latest, the first one is called ES1, and the official name of it is ECMA script. Of course, the student I found it, they are confusing what is ECMA and what is the JavaScript and everything. ECMA script is the JavaScript. Only the official name of the JavaScript is ECMA, due to some of the association, something who founded that. So they have just kept an official name, and in general it is called as JavaScript. So the first version of that is released in 1997, then 98, and the more and more. And right now, all the major browsers started supporting ES5 and the ES6. So what is the next generation JavaScript called right now is ES6, and all the latest version after that ES6. So there are a couple of issues in the JavaScript, like it won't support the let and constant keyword previously. It won't have the strict mode in this particular ES5. So they will just keep releasing all the new versions. We'll just try to see one of the here in the ES3, they have added the try catch mechanism. So we generally know how what exactly the try catch mechanism. To avoid the crash in our code, we use the try catch. So previously it was not available up to the ES2. Then they have released in ES3. Then they were not having the JSON support till the ES5. They have added the JSON support in the ES5, and due to this JSON support, many REST API calls and everything made much simplified from the front end to all the developers in many different frameworks like Angular, React, and many more. After that, they also introduced few more new things coming to the latent cost in the ES6 that we'll see a very detailed lecture on that. What's the difference between latent cost and what's the requirement of it. On top of that, they have also introduced few of the new functions in the array and more. And they keep releasing like this, the new versions of the JavaScript. So we don't need to be much worried about the JavaScript new versions, but why we are looking into this? Whenever you're writing a JavaScript code, you might face something like this is not supportable or in this particular JavaScript. So let's say you're just trying to use the let keyword and you're writing the code in the ES5. So of course you will get the error like let keyword is not supportable or maybe unknown. Or maybe you're trying to use the array.find, array.index, which is not available in the ES5. So if you're figuring out any error like this, so you should immediately strike like there is something version mismatch. I should be checking which version I'm using and what I want to use that is available in which version. This is just will help you for the debugging purpose because many times we'll just debugging for hours and hours and then later we'll figure it out. The one that we are trying to use is not available in the version that we are using. So that's the reason it's important to just go through all of it. Let me just also open one more resource for this particular, that is gigs for gigs here, and it is also giving the same. It's giving you the when which version got released, what are the different features they have introduced in the different JavaScript here. It's almost similar. I'm just trying to give you from the different perspectives so that you should get an idea and also having a habit to learn from a different resources. So in the next lecture, we'll see how exactly the TypeScript works and how exactly the TypeScript will solve the problems that we are facing with the JavaScript. And we'll also see the TypeScript versions and all. See you in the next lecture. So let's try to understand the TypeScript here. So we have seen TypeScript is a superset for the JavaScript. Everything that you can do with the JavaScript that you can also do with the TypeScript. So I'll just write a sample code, a simple one-page TypeScript code, and try to execute it. Then we'll also try how the type safety will be covered with the types script, how it's going to do a well syntax checking, how the code will be more readable, maintainable, object oriented, and the compilation happen here. So this is just an example. Again, no need to write any code. This is just to understand how the problems in the JavaScript we are solving with the TypeScript, a practical demonstration for that. So let me just open my code window here, and here is our HTML and the JS file. That's a previous one. So let me create here a new file called script.ts here. Okay, here we go. And let me just say a console hi from TypeScript file. So of course, I'm not going to run this particular file because we just want to understand the syntax error and everything, how it well shows us in ahead while compilation. If I just want to execute this, I'll execute. Let me just delete the JavaScript file. Let me open the terminal here. Of course, this you should not be doing. And let me just say here ts.script.ts. So here is what how the compilation happened. And whenever you are doing the compilation, as we have seen initially, whenever you compile, a JavaScript file will be created. And this we'll see in the later upcoming section. Okay, so in this particular JavaScript file, we don't need to do anything. So let's delete it. And here is our TS file. And the same problems we faced in the previous one, let's try to introduce now. So I'm going to use the marks variable, let's say 10, and I'm going to console it. Okay, so everything is good. Fine. Now, as we have seen in the last one, the data type mismatch problem. So if I say marks equals to here my name, so it's immediately started complaining that marks is a variable, it is not assignable to a number. So this is a string and you can't assign it to a number. So this is what ahead only we are getting the issues identified in the development. This is what a developer needed when they are writing a bigger application. And here is a what the first thing we are solving with the TypeScript, that is called type safety. If it's a number, then it's a number. You can't assign a string into that. It's a very strict coming to the its data types. So if I can make it 12, that's fine, but I can't make it a string. Clear. That's fine. Let's go to the next one. Well, syntax checking. Again, to understand that, if I'm writing a student name here, again, a variable which is not declared directly, I'm trying to use it, it's not going to allow us. So it's immediately saying us cannot find a name, something called student name. Of course, this is not a it's a very small code. You will say like there is no use out of it. But when you're writing a bigger code, let's say this particular marks itself, I'm making it 11. That's fine till now everything. But if by mistakenly I'm making a spelling mistake here or maybe something, I'm removing s here. So it's much more needed in this case. That's it. So here is how the well syntax checking is being done by the TypeScript here. After that, one more example for the same, we can say if you are writing a function, the same one that we have done previously, I'm writing a function one here. Let me just quickly console here and function one. Let me call it. Yeah, everything is good. And immediately started complaining when I'm trying to call function 2, which is not available in my code. It's immediately saying that cannot find a name with function 2, whatever it is, this particular symbol, this particular function, I'm not able to find. This is what we are getting the errors ahead before we are putting it into the production. So after that, making it more readable and the maintainable, of course, it has the object oriented things, it has the many more things coming to the namespaces modules, which will help us to make it more and more modularize our application. When you're writing a complex application, it will help you to do that, and the code will become more readable and the maintainable with the TypeScript. TypeScript is also having many more object-oriented functionalities like classes, interfaces, inheritance, after that, decorators, generics, which will help you to write the complex application in a much simplified object-oriented way. Then compilation first, then execution. So it's a good example here. It is doing the compilation first before it executed. If you are having some issues here, it will stop you at compilation itself. It will not uh, it will not permit you to perform the execution because you're getting the errors here itself. And in compilation, there are many flexibility that TypeScript will provide us. There is a separate configuration file will be there, something called tsconfig.json. There is a separate module for us in this particular course to discuss on that, how the compilation should happen, how much strict it should be. So overall, always remember one thing: whenever the compilation happens, it is just trying to put some compulsion. It is just trying to get all the errors ahead of the execution itself. That is what the TypeScript is going to do, nothing else apart from that. Okay, so I hope you understand how the TypeScript is solving the problems over here. In the next video, in the next lecture, we'll see what are the different versions are available with the TypeScript. See you in the next lecture. So in different TypeScript version, different features and solution the TypeScript community will keep providing us. So let's understand what are the new versions are available with the TypeScript, what are the versions that we are going to use, what are the differences between different versions and all. So here is the official website for the TypeScript, and I can just go to here called handbook, and let's navigate inside the what's new. So the latest version which is available, the stable version when I'm recording this particular lecture, is 5.1. Before 5.1, there are previous, like all these you can see, and mostly people use 4.0. All these versions won't have any major update. It will have the small update. It could be a new functionalities added, it could be new functions added, new libraries added, but the core functionality will remain always same. If you just want to understand what new things came in a new version of the TypeScript, you can just come here and see. If you're just attending any interviews or if you're just attending any new examinations. So we can just go through it like what's the new version available for the TypeScript and what the new functionalities available in that. It won't hamper any core functionalities. And one more interesting thing that I would like to highlight here. So we have seen something called all the JavaScript versions. Okay, these versions. So as new JavaScript versions are releasing, of course, the TypeScript also need to release a new version of it. Correct, because the TypeScript is a superset for the JavaScript. So let's say a new version for this ECMA 2020 is getting released. So of course, in some days, TypeScript will also release a new version of the TypeScript to support the new version of the JavaScript. So it's not only like whenever the new version of the JavaScript is released, the TypeScript will release its new versions. Of course, for the internal improvements and the performance related things to solve the bugs, the TypeScript will keep releasing the new versions. So what we learned out of this particular lecture, there is no need to worry on which particular TypeScript version we are running. Of course, just you need to be cautious on if you are getting any error, this particular option is not available in this TypeScript. You can just go to the documentation and let's see we are using which version and the function that we are trying to use is available inside which version. That's all in this particular lecture.